The following podcast contains spoilers and adult language. And hang on. Now, be careful. That chimp, he looks angry. He looks like he's really mad at Wade. He looks like he's about to, rip off his... Oh, no. Just needed to barf up that banana. All good.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this week, we're covering episode 7 of the series Three Body Problem. Title of the episode this week is Only Advance. Don't go back, only advance.
To go, collect your $200.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So before we get into our detailed analysis of the episode, let's talk really just quick thoughts on the episode. And I went first last week, so it's your turn for this episode. So Steve, what are your quick thoughts on episode 7, Only Advance?
Again, another solid episode. A lot of talking, lot of expo dump, and I think we should have figured this was going to happen once they announced that, okay, the aliens aren't actually going to get to Earth for 400 years. It pretty much means that the next couple of days, not a lot's going to happen. Right. And then when you also factor in the fact that they literally wiped out all of the Santi cult people on the boat, so literally it's Tatiana's the only one and Wenji are the only two that we know of that are left, right? So it's not like they're gonna be doing something that Wade has to send in Raj and the special forces to wipe out. That would be a big action scene or something, right? So the only thing we're left with now is planning and the staircase project and all these, which are really fascinating ideas, but not a lot of in your face, car chases through the back alleys of the solar system, with gunfights and stuff. So, but again, it was a great episode in terms of, I thought it was well written. Certainly the Will stuff was, very, very heartfelt and sweet, and in some cases a little, vomit inducing, but still it was an interesting way to kind of end his story arc for the moment. Mm-hmm. Right. We don't know what's going to happen, other than, he has a hell of a weight loss program. I'll say that. And then we get everything else going on with Augie and Jin and Saul and all the other people that we've been introduced to. So they all are kind of continuing their journey, and it was great. It just didn't quite the last couple episodes haven't quite had that kind of, watch on the edge of your seat kind of effect, at least for me, that you're just oh my God, what's going to happen? And again, it's sort of like that episode 5 with the fibers and the boat, that was just sort of how do they top this? And maybe the showrunners realized they couldn't, and so they're not trying. But again, the story is very interesting, and I'm real curious to think what your thoughts are, because it's all unfolding for you for the first time. So I liked it. I thought it was really good. How about you?
I feel I completely agree with you that it's a talky episode, and again, when you slice and dice up an entire ship full of people, you gotta sort of take a backseat on the action for a little bit, just a scotch, and tad. So just a tad, just a little bit, and so they're sort of continuing in that vein. So yeah, lots of talky. When we get into our details, there are a handful of things, a couple of nits to pick. overall, I agree with you. It's a good episode, but again, it didn't have that, like, I didn't feel that like sort of like tenseness in my belly because, oh, there's something like this happening or whatever. It, and I think a lot of that has to do with, I mean, this is a very science driven show. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to be like, excited about science.
Oh my!
Science. I'm very
the
sorry.
Fermi paradox. Oh my!
I'm very sorry to the scientists out there, because scientists do feel that way. I'm so sorry. But for me personally, there's like, when they say like, oh, we can only send a brain, my brain goes, huh? Really? Like I just didn't have like that sort of like flutter in your stomach, like nervousness over something, just because a lot of it was talk stuff as opposed to action. There's still some really great stuff that was accomplished, though. I like how each week I keep saying, I really hope that, this happens for this person, or this person becomes more significant, or we find out the answer to the thing. And it kind of has been happening. I literally said as we were ending the episode that I'm like, oh, man, I don't know what it is, but Will really needs to he's got to have some larger purpose or da-da-da-da. And here we are. So
see, I tried to throw you off with that cockamamie theory of it's like the death of humanity is Will slowly dying and being powerless to stop it, and you kind of went interesting, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, in the week before that, it made the most sense for Will to have purchased the star, but I wanted to sort of entertain the possibility of other things, because that's exactly what happened in the first couple of scenes. Was when Jin gets the star, she doesn't even think that it could possibly even be Will. Mm-hmm. All she thinks about is what what's her boyfriend's name again? Raj yeah. Says you have some old boyfriends or something like that. That she goes right down that road.
Yeah. I imagine you have a lot of fancy suitors. And she's like, yeah, I do.
But anyway, so I'm glad that some of those things have been resolved, and that's great. But they're all been resolved in talky, explainy ways. And so now that we're right at the precipice of the season finale, I'm hopeful that we'll get some sort of dun 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 kind of, I don't want to say shocker, but something that makes us go for an action or a thing that happens, because I think that's been missing the last episode or two. So still good, still a very good episode. I love, there are a lot of things I really liked, which we'll get to in when we talk through our stuff. I'm glad that there was a purpose for Will. And I really like the actor that plays Will. I think he brings a lot of gentleness and calmness to that role, which is, I think really needed. And it's such a great sort of counterpoint to all the craziness that's going on, in Jin's world, etc. So it was a good episode. I'm really hoping they stick the landing in the next episode, because there are a handful of things that I was like, really? But overall, even though I had those couple of moments, I would still say good episode. So not my favorite one of the season, but still a very good episode. So, okay, there you go.
Right. So
all right.
Like
so before we get into our individual thoughts, let's remind ourselves of what the plot line was for this episode. So Steve, why don't you start out with that episode description for us?
All right. Well, again, this is episode 1.7 of Three Body Problem, and the title is Only Advance, as only Wade can say it, right? And the description that we have is: a bold proposition for the Staircase Project puts the group at odds. Will weighs his options, and Wenji returns to a familiar place. And those are all things that happened in the episode.
They sure did. Let's talk a little bit about the writers, because there are multiple, and the director of the episode. So let's get that taken care of.
Yeah, well, the writers, we're back to, if you remember,
showrunners.
It's all the showrunners. And if you remember episode 5, it was David Benoff and D.B. Weiss wrote episode 5. And then last week, episode 6 was written by Alexander Wu, which is the third of the showrunners. Well, now this episode, they decided, you know what, rather than us splitting up, let's just all do it together. And so this is written by all 3 of them, much like the pilot episode was. So, so Benoff, Weiss, and Alexander Wu. And I've talked about them a ton already because they've written a bunch of them. So you guys shouldn't be familiar with who they are and what they've done. Our director is a guy named Jeremy Podeswa. I'm no idea. I hope I'm not butchering your name, sir. And if so, I apologize. Again, like every other director that they've gotten on this season, a lot of experience directing stuff and a lot of genre stuff. So he's directed episodes of Station 11, which I know you and I both enjoyed the hell out of.
Immensely, yes.
Super good. He directed an episode of Handmaid's Tale, which is, again, another great, who knew it was a documentary when it started, huh?
I know.
And he directed that weird, GOT thing that you go on and on about. He directed several episodes of True Detective, but season number 2, which I believe is the Colin Farrell season.
It had its bright spots. It was pretty bad, but it did have a couple of bright spots.
It did. I just thought it had way too many stories going at once. It was just like you just picked one. But and here this I thought was the best, just to tie it back in with our little podcast. He directed an episode of a AMC show called The Walking Dead.
Stop it!
I know. And I looked it up. He directed episode 407, and the title of the episode was called Dead Weight, and it was like right in the middle of the Governor season.
Oh.
So.
And then he decided Atlanta is not for me. Goodbye.
It's too hot and sweaty here. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he moved on. But anyway, I thought that was really cool. I'm like, ooh, he directed The Walking Dead. That's pretty wild. Small world. So and again, I thought that, he did a great job. It's a really well put together episode, and like we said, is it the most exciting? No, but that's what the story where they're at. It's not full of lots of action, and so I thought he did a wonderful job. So,
nice.
So that is your writers and your director.
Fantastic. So we both are number 1. Where we start out with Jin getting her star delivered and finding out that someone bought a star for her. And we knew he bought the star, but we didn't know who it was going to be for. And we're like, oh, it's for Jin.
You thought it was for Jack.
I thought that it could be for Jack. It could be because he's using Jack's money clearly to do this. And I thought the possibility existed that it could be like Jack would have helped fund whatever crazy thing we need to do to fight the Santi or blah, blah, blah. So he'd want to be involved as a scientist, and so I thought that was possible. But, as soon as the star gets delivered to Jin, you're like, vomit. I really love you, and I don't know how to tell you. So what I'm going to do is spend a cool 15 mil or so.
Pounds, 50 million pounds.
Yeah, on something that, and I put in my notes that I really appreciated Jin's reaction. She was so like, ugh, she was like almost irritated at the whole thing. And she's like, no one can own a star. And I was like, well, I guess so.
Yeah, well, and I love Raj because he's like, oh, well, according to all this legal paperwork, you do. It's almost like, hey, man, could you have just sent me the money?
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than like buying something. How many times have I said, Will just send me a gift card.
Yes, exactly. If you don't know what to get me, it's just, I mean, I like the star, but it doesn't really fit me, so I'm gonna have to return it.
Now I'm gonna have to exchange it, and oh, that's a pain.
Did you get a receipt?
Right. Well, and knowing the stars are our destination, they're just gonna give me store credit.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Damn people. Yeah. So yeah, it went that way, and of course, like the probability of it being Jin was the highest probability, you know. So it's not like I was surprised. I didn't sit there and go, "Oh my God, I didn't even think it could be Jin." But I was like,
I was hoping that last week when I said it was Jin, that it was almost like I was trying to, like, by telling you what it was going to be, I was hoping you'd be like, well, he's trying to throw me off because he wouldn't spoil. So it clearly can't be Jin. So that way, when it was Jin, you'd be like, mind blown, and expected all these massive, full capital, Trump style texts going, oh my God, it's Jin Star. And then I get nothing. So I'm like, whatever, Driscoll, fine. So yeah.
So it was Jin.
It was Jin. Yes. I did like, though, before, like, the scene, like the shot actually opens and it's Will and Saul, and they're still at the summer cottage, and we don't call it the beach house because, as we know, the British suck at beach.
They suck at beaches. Yeah.
But they're there, and they're like out on the patio or the deck, and they are like have a telescope, or they're looking up, he's pointing out where a star is, and Saul's kind of messing with him a little bit and saying, well, that's not it. And he's like, yeah, it is. Like, oh, no, it isn't. And, and they're kind of joking around. And then Will, like, collapses. Yeah. Right. And so they rush him to the hospital. And then I thought it was it just my note I put down was there's a scene where Jin calls him, like, with a video call on her tablet, and is talking to Will, and Will is putting up a good front, and he's like, I'm not in imminent danger. How many of you can say that? And and they're like talking about how great the room is, and he's high as a kite right now, and it's just everything's great, and then she so she says okay, and so then Will or Saul takes the phone away from Will and kind of walks out of the room a little bit, and he's like, so come when you can. and just the way that he said it was sort of like this is not good, you need sooner is way better than later here, and she got
running out of time slowly.
Yes, and she totally got it, but I loved how he did it, because he didn't want to say anything that was going to upset Will, and so he phrased it as best as he could without kind of going, oh my God, you got to get here quick. He's only got like 10 minutes left type thing. So yeah, I thought that was just the way to start off the episode, with basically going, that Will guy, he will not be on the show much longer.
Yeah, they're getting I gotta give them props, man. They got rid of more characters in 7 episodes of television than Fear the Walking Dead did in like 3 years.
Oh, all of the Knucklehead seasons, they didn't kill this many people, main people. Never. Not at all. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And let's be honest, they certainly imply that there are 2, and I would say 2.5 major character deaths in this episode.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's they're not mucking around. They're gonna tell their story, and once a character's part's finished, they gone.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting.
Yes.
So.
And also let me just finish off. I thought, I was very surprised, and I thought I almost blame this on writing, that when Jin gets the star and Raj is, kind of going, well, who would have sent you this? It has to be someone who has a lot of money, and she has no idea. I'm like, really? You don't? Because they've never told us explicitly that Will has told anyone other than Saul that he's inherited all this money from Jack. But I mean, they're at that like summer house for, days and days and days. It's like, really? You don't think that that's come up? That Saul
he's not able to do
Will,
that on a teacher salary,
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, that hasn't come up that, oh yeah, and Jack, he gave Will all his money. Really? Okay. And so it's like I'm operating under the assumption that clearly Jin knows that Will got all of Jack's moolah. And so now here comes the star, and it's like, really, you have no idea who could have possibly done this, who has a ton of money, who literally has like 3 minutes left to live. You know what I mean? It's just, she's completely clueless. I'm like, come on. So I don't, what did that bother you as much as me?
It didn't bother me as much. Like it sort of like tickled the back of my brain a little maybe, but it didn't bother me only because she's under such an enormous amount of pressure right now with what's going on. She is really like not concentrating on all other stuff. You know what I mean? She wasn't in tune with what was going on with Augie, and Augie's like her closest friend. She didn't suspect that something weird had happened. She wasn't questioning Raj and how he was gone. She's still not questioning why she and Raj are both involved in the same project. She's just sort of like, she's giving a lot of grace to things right now that I think in a different time and place, she might have, looked at it a little more. Also, I'm pretty sure that they have all sort of shown that they are terrible at like love stuff. So I mean, and the stereotype is that, academics and scientists and things like that are bad at this because they're just not good at expressing themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I don't necessarily want to say that it is because of that stereotype, but I think just, Jin is probably the most adept at relationships out of everybody in her group, but she still is like on the edge. I mean, Raj was like, make sure you don't do this when we go meet my family. And what does she do? She like diarrheas of the mouth for like 5 minutes,
Right.
So,
all the science talk. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, she still should have had like maybe an inkling, but I also think too that I think that everything else that's going on right now gives her a tiny bit of a pass to like not go into, like, she didn't even have time or the brain space to even put like her brain to who could have sent her a star, like she just, you know what I mean? Like that's why it didn't bother me. Like it just feels like, she just doesn't have time to even think about it. So wow. I get it. Girl, I get you.
All right, cool.
But I understand how it could be frustrating. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I know that you've probably been the guy who sent the star and they didn't figure it out, and you're like, it's right there. All of my heart is on my sleeve. Like,
okay, to be fair, I bought a solar system.
In that case, they should have definitely known.
I know. Hello. So, right. Oh, well, that's anyway. All right.
So
thanks for bringing up great memories.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about
cryo chimp.
Yeah, cryo chimp. So
wait. We have to rephrase it. It's bad CGI cryo chimp.
Yeah, really bad. Mm-hmm. And here's my thing. I understand that you need it for certain parts of the scene. You needed it for inside the tube or whatever, and I'm like, you couldn't get that from, I don't know. But once he was like awake, mm-hmm. How do you not use a real chimp for that?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of, because I thought that too, is that they tried it and like the real chimp looked nothing like the CGI chimp. Like that, you know what I mean? Where it's like so obvious, like now we're using a real chimp. Now it's a computer chip. You know what I mean? That they're like, oh, this isn't going to work. So they just made it consistent, right?
I guess so. I don't understand why you couldn't use a real chimp the whole time. Like you can't train a chimp to just lay down. For me, I would have had a chimp lay down and pretend he's asleep. And then you film that. And then the CGI portion is you put the pod thing, the cryo chamber thing over his face. That's the part that's CGI'd. You know, and then you have a real chimp behind.
Okay,
it.
You know how much it costs to get a chimp that can do that? I mean, this show already has like, you know, the Oxford 5, and you want to like get like intelligent chimps too? Come on, D. It's all money.
I didn't say he had to be intelligent. He just has to be able to lay down and close his eyes.
That's, you know what? That is more than most working Hollywood actors can do right now, okay?
Wow. Sorry, man.
And also, are you going to teach him to train them to barf on cue?
No, but you know, you could just add a mechanical barf machine.
A mechanical barf machine. I love it. Why didn't they do it? They should have done a puppet. That's what it should have been.
A puppet that goes.
And you know, I know your funny little opening thing. I am so like brainwashed from the zombie shows. As soon as he started to make that face, I'm like, oh, he's gonna rip someone's face off.
No shit. Right. Why wouldn't you think that? Like, I didn't put it in my notes, but I mean, I figured we'd talk about it. But
oh yeah,
as soon as his face changed, I was like, oh yeah, he's totally gonna tear Wade's face off. Like
it's like the beginning of 28 Days Later, you know?
Yeah, like. And I thought that was in that hot second where his face changed, and I'm like, oh, he looks angry. In my brain, I was like, this is the thing that teaches them you don't fuck with nature.
Yeah, right.
Because
yeah.
You put a chimp asleep for too long and he gets pissed off, he tears your face off. And I'm like,
or like, you know, his brain turned to mush and now he's like rabid or something, right? I mean, it's just, so many things could have gone wrong, right? But yeah, I had the same reaction. I'm just like, up, out of the room.
Yeah, you need to, yeah, exactly. And I don't think we were alone on that. I feel like a lot of people probably watched that and they were like, uh-oh, angry chimp, angry. Oh, he's just puking. Okay.
Yeah, and they're just all like,
yeah.
I did enjoy, there was a great Wade line, because like two of the scientists that are there are like people that are doing the propulsion part of Operation Staircase, and they like before, like the guy, the Russian guy that it's his project with the suspended animation. He's just starting to talk about, you know, how they finally had a breakthrough and now it works and blah blah blah. And they kind of go, excuse me, Dr. Jin, and Wade and Jin look over at them. They're like, why are we here? You know, because they're like, we do propulsion, like we're like making the probe go and so on. And Jin goes, well, how long will it take the probe to reach the Santi fleet? And the one guy goes, 200 years. And she goes, and what will happen to the probe's occupant during that time? And the guy just goes, death. And then Wade goes, see, you do belong in this meeting.
Yeah, perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I love that moment later on when they were like, is anybody willing to? And he's like, what's your name? What was it, Edgar? And he's like, Edgar, David, shut up. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, you're don't be retarded, shut up.
That was great. That was great.
Yeah.
All right. So the best okay, so first there's a lot that came out of that scene. First of all, the putting someone to sleep, putting anything to sleep, and then the guy that was in charge, Dr. Demikov was his name. And he's basically like, we can do it for as long as we want, and you know, and they should be fine when they wait, you know, as long as the monkey is okay, then that means you'll be okay. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know. I feel like this doesn't bode well, but you know, proceed. So then what comes out of that is Wade is like, yeah, I'm gonna do it too.
Oh yeah.
And
it's like, Jin's you guys can all get in the line behind me.
Yeah, he's like, his whole reasoning, which I guess makes sense, he's like, you know, when the Santi get here, he wants to be here to make sure that everything goes well. You know, he's got all these people working on these projects, and he wants to make sure that it all turns out the way he is planning it to turn out, you know?
Yep.
And so his big plan, this is hilarious. His big plan is he's going to do it. He's going to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. He'll get woken up once a year. He'll visit his mom. He'll check in on the team and make sure that everybody's
hire and fire people.
Right. He'll watch Wimbledon.
Yep.
And then he'll go back to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so June it is. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, Wade. I mean, I just can't pin this guy down. I love it. He just, every time you think you kind of understand him as like the sort of megalomaniac, like, but in a good way. Like he's on the right side, but he's also a little bit of like a crazy rich person in a way. Mm-hmm. And then stuff like this happens and you're like, okay, now I really have no idea who you are, what you're about. But you're amusing. He's always amusing. He's always got a great line.
No, he does. Yes.
So yeah, he's a great.
Definitely has the delusions of grandeur there, because, you know, Jin kind of calls him on it, because he's like, you know, I'm the only one that can oversee the plan. And she's like, oh, really? You're the only one? And what about the staircase, you know, project? He's like, well, that's a project. So anybody can do that. You can do that. I have to like oversee all of it, like to defend the earth.
Yeah.
You know, so he's clearly like growing into this, like, I'm the only person that can stop them kind of mentality, you know, right. And yeah, but you're right. He always has great lines ready to go, and
the best.
You know. But when he said the whole thing, he's like, "Yeah, I'll get up once a year. I'll fire people, hire people, see how the plan's going, check in on mom, watch Wimbledon."
Yeah, just like that's the watch Wimbledon thing is like, ugh. I wonder too, like how much is, because I didn't read the books. And I don't know if this guy exists in those books or whatever. I don't know what the structure is, but I just know it's very similar to what we're doing with the show. But I wonder if that's a scripted line, the Wimbledon thing, or if like Liam Cunningham, the actor, if he just, what'd you say?
Oh, okay. I thought you meant did they pull it direct from the book, or do you think you're saying, do you think Liam Cunningham just ad-libbed that?
Yes, like he, like in the line, it was something like, you know, check out whoever, like whatever the football club is, because, you know, dudes are so big into their like Premier League stuff there, mm-hmm. that would have made like all kinds of sense. And don't get me wrong, tons of Brits are into Wimbledon, but I just like, he seems like more of a soccer dude than a tennis dude. I don't know why. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But I don't know. I love the Wimbledon thing because it's unexpected. That's what it is. So I like it. I like it. So speaking of unexpected is just really quickly, just the scene with Will and his siblings.
With his sister and brother-in-law, yeah.
Yeah, that was like, I'm not sure why it was there. You know? I don't know.
My thought on it was to kind of show us, to let us know for sure that outside of his, you know, now 3 friends, Will really doesn't have much else in his life. There's not a lot holding him here. He doesn't have a strong family connection. Right. You know, you find out that his mom's dead. You have to assume his dad has passed away as well. And it's just his sister and him, and they're not close. True. Yeah. And so when he's going to get this momentous decision to make about what to do, there's not a lot of things that are holding him back of like, well, no, I want to spend the time I have left with these people.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of that scene. Okay. You know, it was just a way to show that, yeah, you know what, the dude, he really, other than buying stars for girls who will never love him back, he doesn't have a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That's true. I can see that for sure. So Okay. Well,
I did think it was interesting that he clearly has not told them that he inherited a lot of money.
Oh no. And I wonder too if in that moment he was deciding, well, like if he was going to say anything or do anything, like I haven't seen you in so long and yada yada. But as soon as she started getting like kind of like, we should get that money when you're gone. We deserve it. And I think he probably just made that decision right then and there.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to go to you at all.
They literally, it's like whatever mom gave me. Yeah, you can have that. But like all this other money that I have left over, no flipping way.
No, it's not happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It'd be interesting though to be like, can you imagine if they found out like, forget about the money that was from your mom dying. Like he just spent like all this kind of money on naming a star for the woman that he loves who will never love him back the same way or have the opportunity to do so because he's going to die.
Oh, yeah, I know.
My God. Yeah.
Good old Will. We also got another, fantasy sequence of him in the origami boat.
Yes.
Because he's kind of like drifting and you can tell he's kind of in a drug haze. And then you kind of hear his sister go, Wilbur, and then finally he kind of shakes out of it and they're, sitting in the room. And clearly they've been there for at least a hot minute or two. So
I love that his Christian name is Wilbur. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'd keep that under wraps too if I was him.
I'd go with Will. Yes.
Yeah, Will is that's the way. That's what we're going with. That's what we're going to lead with. So back with the staircase project, they get the news that Wade strangely is not able to scrape up enough bombs. They need 1,000. Is it?
That was the original number. Yeah.
To be able to achieve like the certain what have you, like the speed, the whatever, based on like the prototype of the the probe they're gonna have, the math needed to have 1,000 bombs. Well, they only have 300, so the probe needs to be lighter. So they're talking about it, and they very, very quickly come to the conclusion, oh, okay, well, the only thing we can do is the brain. And you're like, they jumped really fast. Like they were like, okay, oh, all right, well, we'll send the brain then. That's fine. You're like, what? What? They're like, yeah, it'd have to be someone would have to donate themselves to science and or whatever. They're like, and it should be someone who's probably already going to die. And I'm like, I was really expecting there to be a moment where like Jin and Augie look at each other like like that total, and they didn't, which I appreciate because that would have been very stereotypical.
Well, they did give each other a look.
Okay.
Because and I wrote down the line which Wade says when he talks about we'll send someone's brain because he's already banking on because as they keep pointing out, the Santi know everything they're doing because of the Sophon. So it's not like this is a secret. So they know they're going to launch this probe. They know it's coming to them. And, as he already pointed out, they're not going to destroy it. They're going to catch it. They're going to stop it because they want to know about us as much as we want to know about them. And so now he just kind of goes the extra bit of, you know what, they're so far advanced in us, they can repair the brain and give it either a robot body or they can grow a new human body, whatever, you know what I mean? Like they will be able to restore the brain to a living being, and then we have our man. And then he points out about, and I think Augie's like, so someone has to die to do this, because she's all defiant, right? At Wade, and he goes on about, well, we need to find someone that is, going to make that sacrifice, is willing to do it. And then he goes, which probably means someone who's dying already. And then he goes, any of you know someone of that description? And Augie and Jin look at each other because, as we've already seen, whenever Wade talks about getting someone to work for him, that person already works for him. They just don't know it yet, right? And so
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So it's like, and so there, I know, like from Augie's standpoint, she's like, no, you're not dragging in another one of my friends into this thing,
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
and so she's disgusted by it, and that's when she leaves, I think, right? Isn't that when she's like, I can't work here anymore?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But yeah, it is, they go very quickly from, well, we can't send a person anymore, so we're going brain,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, huh? But I think you have to remember that speed is of the essence. They don't have time to muck around and spend 20 years, researching and developing rocket propulsion
Right.
so they could make it work. You know what I mean? He's like,
Right.
we're doing this and the launch is next week. So
Yeah.
make it work however you can, and that's the only solution, right?
Right.
That,
I would also think.
Yep.
I was gonna say, I would also think too, like Wade seems like a really clever guy and he seems like one of those people that's prepared for all outcomes. I mean, he's willing to like put himself like to sleep for a year so that he can, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So he seems pretty prepared for that. So I would assume that he's got like some person in another room who's like, let's say this doesn't work. What can we do to fix it? Let's say this doesn't work. How do we go about, like, you know what I mean? Like going through all the different like possibilities, as it were, So he may have already been contemplating, like, what do we do if it's too heavy? How would we get around that? What do we do if it's this? How do we get around that? What if we don't have enough of something else or whatever? Because that's how you prepare for those moments. And so
Right.
I feel like he had something along the lines of the brain in his back pocket.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that he could, is there some way that we could, because he knew about the suspended animation thing.
Oh,
so
clearly.
He had that sort of, tickling around in his head. If we can use this, then how else can we utilize this?
Yeah, yeah.
And remember, when he introduced the doctor, he said he's been keeping things alive for us. He didn't say people, he said things. Keeping things alive for us. And I'm like, okay, so he's probably already doing experiments with brains anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is
clearly clearly a contingency, right? Like you said, that he's like, well, we want to send a person, but we have these other, like, we'll send a liver if we have to.
A pancreas, maybe.
It's
I
the
agree.
lightest organ,
It is. I agree. It's a big leap, and yes, he is like the project kind of guy. Like, and this project is moving quickly, so he is already in tune with like moving quickly. Mm-hmm. I think for the regular person watching this show, that's where the big leap happened. Is you're like, my brain is still wrapping it around the fact that they're going to use nuclear weapons to propel a probe forward so that they can meet with aliens and be able to sort of report back or help, save us before they get here. Like wrapping your brain around all of those things. And then they're like, oh, we can't, it's only 300 bombs. Oh, okay. We can't send a full body, just a brain. I need to process this a little bit.
Right. Well, you're right. And for us watching, you do. But from his standpoint, you can't stop.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Because if you stop, then people start bringing up other options, and now you're discussing what's the best way to do it. And he's like, no, we're doing this. That means, So his whole thing is, the project is going forward and nothing is going to stop it. And there are no problems. There are just, things that, what did Matt Damon say in The Martian? You do the math and you solve the problem, and then you solve the next problem and the next one. And if you solve enough of them, then, you get to send your brain to the aliens.
Right. And think about, what's Wade's thing? Only advance. Can't take any steps backwards. This isn't a step backwards that we can't take a full body. We need to advance. What's the next step forward? And then after that, the next step and the next step. So
yeah. Good.
He's already in that frame.
I like it. You're tying in the title and giving it a meaning. Well done.
I didn't even mean to. My God. I feel so smart all of a sudden, like I'm a scientist.
If we were smart, we would just stop talking and end the episode right now.
All right. Talk to you next week, folks. We're going to wrap it up here. This has been Aim for the Head. This is our shortest podcast ever.
This is Aim for the Head super genius podcast.
Oh, man. Anyway, but we're not super geniuses. We're going to keep yapping for at least another hour.
We got to talk about Augie.
Yeah, because Augie, I put it in my notes that she gave it her good college try to come back. Because she did not want to come back to Wade, but for Jin, she did it, for humanity.
I don't even think it's for that. I just think, Jin is the friend of that group that just has everyone wrapped around her finger, because Will also is not doing it for humanity. He's doing it for her. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. And I think that's the reason why Augie is building the sail, is not to help Wade. Wade can go F himself. It's not to save the planet. It's because, as she points out, it's 400 years from now. What do we care? And it's because Jin asked her to. Yeah. Yeah. But she's like, I'm done. Oh, yeah. No, the Will thing, she's done. Yeah. Yeah. So she is like, I can't do this anymore. And there's like two totally different scenes that happen. She packs it in at the manor where all of the Winchwood Manor, or wherever it is that they are, is their sort of headquarters. Right. And so she packs it in there and, has her scene with Jin, sorry, whatever. But she also has a second scene where she visits with the dude from her research center. And Dennis. Yeah, Dennis with a Y. Dennis with a Y. And she basically is like, I'm releasing everything out to the world. It's going to be on WikiLeaks, yada, yada. So it's open source. And he goes through all these reasons why, like, you can't because of this. And she's like, no, I have this contingency. You can't because of that. And she's like, no, I have, which are all technical things that I don't understand. But she basically goes around all of the reasons that he gave to her of how she could not release her stuff out into the world. She found a way and got around all of it. And he was like, you're going to put it out? She's like, it's already out there. She had hit the button and it was gone. But what's interesting, I didn't think about it until after the fact. By putting it out there, she gives it to the world, but she also gives it to Jin's team. I can't work with your team because Wade makes me, crazy, but my research is available to you. You can still use my research and my discovery. I just don't have to be involved in it anymore. Use it if you can. I'll be gone. Yeah. And I won't have anything to do with this anymore. And she does, and we don't see the scene, but we hear the description later. She stops at Will's hospital room and drops off a big bottle of liquor. I recognize the bottle. It's a big bottle of tequila. I was going to ask you what it was. Because the bottle is very opaque and you can't read if it has anything written on it. You can't, in the show, you can't see what it is. So no, it's tequila. And I'm pretty sure it's the 1692. It's a fancy bottle of tequila is what it is. And so she's like, and then they're talking about her and, did she say where she was going? And they said no. But I think someone said later they assumed that she went home. That's where, she seemed to suggest that she was going to go back home. And was States. Her story about her, she's from the States? Yeah. So, so that's, it doesn't mean we'll never see her again. It just means she needed to go away right now because she needs to get over. She needs to deal with what they did at the canal. Mm-hmm. And she's been dealing with all of the trauma of that and hasn't really worked through it. And, she came back because her friend needed her, but it was like against her better judgment. And she was, kind of right. And she's like, goodbye, I'm out. And she gone. Yeah. Well, what I think is really interesting about that whole scene is that before that scene, there's the one bit with Clarence in the whole episode.
Yeah.
And he's, at home playing the video game that his son was playing, and his son comes in and his son shows him on his tablet this like new business venture that he's launching. And it's like people, it totally sounded like a pyramid scheme to me, because like people like invest every month, and they're going to, the idea is that the money that they're investing, this kid and his partner are going to develop the technology to like move to another planet in the solar system to live on, whether it's Mars or one of the moons of Jupiter or wherever. And it's just, it's, as Clarence points out, he goes, it looks great, it's real, I'm proud of you. And he goes, but it's all bollocks. It's not real, And
Yeah.
but when the kid's talking about it, he says that, yeah, there's this investor that's interested. His name is Dennis Porlock, and that's the guy that's working with Augie, which is
Yep.
a weird connection, right?
It
And
is.
then
Yeah.
and then it cuts to that meeting, and basically that meeting, Dennis is telling Augie that she's out, that they're firing her from her company, and they're going to go forward with all of her research and tech and use it to make millions, as he's saying, right? And he's seeing the dollar signs and everything. And it's while he's doing that she's typing on her phone. And he's like, go ahead, finish your tweet. And she's like, oh, it's not a tweet, and then she tells him what she does. And you're right. He like freaks out because he's losing everything, because it's going to be, like you said, it's on WikiLeaks and Reddit and all these places, public domain places. Everyone's going to know it. So they're going to not be able to, exclusively market it as like, this is our thing. You got to pay us to use it. And he's like, we'll sue anyone that tries to use it. And she's like, yeah, go ahead. You sue third world countries. See how popular that makes you. And then he's like, well, we'll sue you. And she's like, yeah, well, you better hurry up because my flight leaves in 3 hours. And she just gets up and walks out. So very defiant moment for Augie. And I think she kind of took out a lot of her anger on Wade on Dennis.
Yes. And I think she reclaimed a little bit of herself in that moment,
Yes.
Not just her, research. She sort of put it out there for the man, as it were. But yeah, she really sort of like remembered who she was in that moment,
And she has the tequila with her in the meeting. It's in her bag. And he and Dennis, like his like parting shot is like, sorry, you're just like gonna go out and like drink your bottle of wine or something, and whatever he says. And she's like, no, that's for a friend. And then it cuts to the next scene where Jin is visiting Will, and the bottle is like on his like table and stuff. And that's when she asked, did Augie say where she was going? And Will's like, nope, didn't say a word. So but a great Augie scene, and it would be really cool if we see her in next week's episode, but I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Overalls.
I don't know. I just and to be honest, I honestly can't remember. So maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But at this point, because I'm like, she comes back in this one, right? And I'm like, I don't know. So we'll have to see.
Okay. All right. Well, good to know. So Will has obviously made his call. He's gonna do it. They try to talk him out of it. Jin has a really nice moment where she's there and she's really like pleading with him, like, you don't have to do this. And he basically has sort of decided, he's got you included the quote. He had this really beautiful moment with Jin. And then he just makes his decision, and eventually he does it anyway. So I love that quote, though. You should talk about that.
Yeah, it's she like once Wade makes it very clear who he is going to get to volunteer for this mission, Augie and Jin are like, well, we're going to tell him to go tell Wade what he can go do with himself. And so that's why Jin is, seeing him is to basically say, look, you know what, this guy I work for, Wade's going to come talk to you, and whatever he says, just to say no, And, Will is extremely high, right, on lots of pain meds and stuff. And at one point, they're talking about Augie, because like when the scene opens, it's clear that Jin's already done the "you're not going to do it" speech to him, and they've moved on to more personal stuff. And they're talking about Augie, and did she say she was going, so on. And then Will just kind of like starts looking at her, and she's like, "You're staring," and he goes, "No, I'm not." He goes, "I'm seeing you. Sometimes when you're really high, you see people." And then he goes, or maybe it's when you're dying. He goes, and this is the most heartfelt part. He goes, "But I see you and I love you." And then she starts, to well up in tears. And then he goes, "And it's all right." And, yeah, it is. It's one of those lines, I think, that the romantics out there always hope you can lay on the girl to really blow her away, and it never works out that way, right? You never get that opportunity. But what I really liked about it, in my cold dead heart, was that he finally got to tell her that he loved her, but he ended it with "it's all right" to say, "You don't have to love me back." And I thought that was really tender and sweet. And, Jin clearly, was overwhelmed by it, because she would just became a mass of bubbly tears and stuff. So did that ring true with you, that line?
That he said he loved her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think him saying that he loved her was kind of an admission. And not an admission, I take that back. That was more of him. That's his final acceptance of, in that moment, he really decided, because it seemed like he was still kind of on the fence. Like, am I a yes? Am I a no? Mm-hmm. I could say no, and I could stay here with Jin and always see, but I think in that moment, he really came to grips with the fact that, she'll always care about him, but I don't think she's ever going to love him the same way. And so he knows that, and he knows, he saw his sister, he doesn't have family. He'll miss his friends will miss him. But he has this opportunity to do something really important science-wise. And he's also had all of those moments leading up to it where he makes fun of his job. He makes fun of the fact that they're all brilliant, and he doesn't, even his sister said the same thing. Everybody fawned all over you, and you were like the smartest guy, and you just have a regular job, you were the golden he's a child. Teacher. So I think he's got a lot of, feelings of, I don't want to say inadequate, but he feels a little less than with his friends, mm-hmm. self-esteem wise. But here's his moment where he can really, really contribute something major, and his death doesn't need to be in vain. And he's gonna die anyway.
Exactly.
He's close. And I think once he really came to grips with that, he wanted to just say that he loved Jin and have that be his last thing. And I think that made him feel comfort, that he was able to sort of get that off of not his chest, but to get it off of his heart, mm-hmm. and know that he leaves with a clear mind and a purpose,
Yeah.
It felt true. It didn't feel like he was stoned, but it didn't feel like he was saying it because he was stoned. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a slip up, I didn't mean to say that when I was high.
It's like the second phone, not that.
Yeah.
From Walter White.
Yeah, no, he didn't mean to say that. So it feels true, and I think there's so much about Will and his character that is just so sincere too, mm-hmm. that I think in that moment he's just being his true self. he was seeing her, but he was also seeing himself,
Oh, look at you.
So, yeah, I think it was very honest of him,
Okay.
So,
well, and then there's like a later scene where Wade is in the room with him.
yeah,
And maybe it was before. I can't remember what the order, but remember Wade pulls out he's like, there's one last thing. It's formality. It's this like oath to humanity.
yes.
And he's like, you have to sign it. And he reads the whole thing, and he's like, why would I sign this? And he's like, and Wade's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what if I get there and I find out they're better than humanity? Why would I, I wouldn't. I would totally go with them. And he ends that whole thing of like, the only reason I'm doing this is because Jin wants me to and thinks it's a good idea. And he goes, so if you want, I'll sign a loyalty oath to her, but not to humanity. And Wade is like, puts the form away and gets up, and he's like, well, we'll be in touch with next steps. And Jin goes running out of the room after him, and she's like, what do you mean next steps? And he's like, that's our man, because he's not our man, and that'll be perfect, because they'll want him even more because they think maybe he's not our man. Wade playing games and everything. But anyway, with Will saying that, look, the only reason I'm doing this is because of Jin, and I will swear loyalty to her, not to everyone else. Again, clear of mind, even though he's stoned to the bejesus belt, basically saying that, look, all of what I'm doing now is all for her.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Wade respects that too. Like,
he does.
Wade understands, like, if he can, that's why, like, like that young kid that was like, I volunteer. It's like, don't be retarded. He's what he's just getting caught up in the like, the dramaticness of the moment. Whereas he knows that Will is acting on a real pure instinct, a real pure emotion. Mm-hmm. And I think Wade, deep down inside, he respects that.
He respects that, and he knows that he can exploit it and use it because Wade knows that Will do anything to try and keep Jin safe, even though, by the time he gets to the Santi, Jin will be long shuffled off this mortal coil. It doesn't matter. Will be doing it because he wants to protect the memory of her or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's an exploitable thing about Will that Wade's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. It's going to be perfect. It's going to work better than like finding some weird volunteer out there. Like if Raj was like, you can take my brain. It's like, yeah, whatever, soldier boy. This guy, he's in love with her. He'll do anything for her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do it like he's not expecting anything back is the other thing too. Yeah. He would do anything for her, but it's in a pure way. It's not in a expectations kind of way.
Right.
And that's exactly what he needed.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, God, we've talked about so much with Will and everything, and he is like 80% of this episode. But there is a nice, tight little 20% that is Wenjie. And she's got a really great scene at the end of the episode. But before we even get there, she gets this scene with Saul.
Yes.
And it's at Vera's grave. And she has this real sort of cryptic conversation with him, ends with this joke. And the punchline of the joke is like about being careful not to play God, and I couldn't
I think you might be misremembering it, because the punchline, the joke is about Einstein dies and goes to heaven, and he wants to play his violin, which has come with him to heaven, and the angels all tell him, no, don't do it, because God is a saxophonist and he hates anyone playing while he's playing. And of course, Einstein loves playing the violin, and so he hears God one day playing Take the A Train, which is a famous jazz song, and he thinks, you know what, I'm going to play with him. So he does, and then God stops playing and appears and kicks him in the nuts and smashes his violin. And so then after God leaves, an angel shows up and tells Einstein, we warned you, never play with God, is the punchline. So don't play with God. like mess with him, but they're saying it as playing your instrument with. It's not a very good joke, but I think what I take out of that is she is equating the Santi to being God, and that they're much more advanced than we are, right? And so whatever Saul thinks is going on, whatever his friends are doing to try and fight them, you're just playing with God, and it's never a good idea. You're going to get, your bugs, you're going to get stepped on, right? That's what I take from that. But you go ahead and say what you wanted to say.
Oh, well, I was saying exactly what you just said. So you just said it before I did. Oh. So she said, I just said the words out loud wrong, and you corrected me for 5 minutes. That's all.
Well, I read your note, and you say not to play God, and I'm like, yeah, that's not what she actually says. Play with. Anyway, I'm sorry. But I did not mean to steal your thunder. I don't think that
there's but I honestly, I mean, that's just parsing it. I don't think she's basically saying like it's because I don't think we think we're smarter. That's not what's happening there. But I think she's warning them against playing with something that they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And she was saying it in a way that I didn't get this, because I was like, I don't get this at all. What is happening here? And I read it in a review of the episode that they said that, and that makes sense, but it would have been nice to have had it explained a little better. But they were saying because the Santi said that they don't understand humor, mm-hmm. that it was the only way she could sort of get her point across without saying it out loud. You know what I mean? Like she had to speak kind of in code to Saul. So really? She's kind of, yeah, that's what I read. And so I'm like, that makes sense. And that would, because it doesn't sound like a joke she's told before. It sounds like she's trying to tell this, story so that it has the punchline of, you were warned, never play with God. And so do you know what I mean? Like she had to sort of backtrack from that line and like build a joke around it so that she could say it. And then Saul is like, I don't get it. And it's going to hit him later, I think. And I think,
that does make sense, because she hits the punchline and Saul has this like blank look on his face. Like, what are you talking about? And she has this line of like, well, humor isn't for everyone. And that could be a direct reference to the Santi.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny. I did not think of that at all. Wow. That's really interesting.
I didn't either. I saw that in a review and I was like, oh, that makes, when I saw that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. That, cause Wenji is very, very smart, mm-hmm. and she understands the Santi in a way that I don't think most people do. She and Mike Evans both have been communicating with them the longest, so she understands that they don't get, she probably got early on that they don't understand humor, and so she's like, I got to give them a warning. How do I do this? They're paying attention and I know that. How do I do this? And they don't know. And how do I, it makes sense. Like they could be, this reviewer could have been off, but I think like it makes sense to me.
Oh, it does,
Otherwise it's just when Wenji knew she was going to die. She's like, let me finish by telling you a really cryptic joke and you won't understand it, but this is how you'll remember me. What? Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. No, that's funny. Now I'm thinking about that. I might have to do a little deeper dive on this and see if that's a real joke, if they wrote it for the show or whatever. This series has a really strong track record of pulling in existing stuff.
Yes.
And incorporating it. So maybe that is like a joke that physicists tell each other because it's about Einstein. I don't know. I mean, now I'm super curious about it. But Yeah, and I also love when Wenji is at the airport, and and the guy, the Clarence's like assistant is there, like he's at the back of the line waiting to board the plane because he's following her, and then she like turns around and walks back, stands right next to him, and goes, "I changed seats so we can sit together." And he's like, "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Because he's trying to keep up, the cover. And she's like, "It's a long flight, and it'd be great to have someone to talk to." And then he kind of goes, "Yeah, it is a long flight."
Yep. Yeah, it is. And he accepts it.
Yeah, and he's like, whatever. You know.
Yeah. So I might as well jump into we can jump around a little bit. So, when she gets on the plane, because she's going back to the satellite station.
Right.
And so she's decided that's where she wants to, end it all.
Right.
And so there is a scene right before when she leaves, though, that you covered it there, where you're talking about, we get a check back in with Tatiana.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess she lives in an RV in the middle of the woods somewhere.
She does, in a van down by the river. Absolutely. Yeah. And, she's recovered from her leg wound.
Yeah, it was just a flesh wound.
Yeah, but so you get the sense that some time has passed, right? That it's at least a week or two has gone by, and she's like making soup or something, and she turns on her TV like you do. And I think it's very, very interesting because the very first story that comes on the TV is a British report on the cicada infestation that's starting to happen in the United States. And again, the whole bugs thing, right? And then, of course, the sword girl appears. The Santi sword woman from the simulation appears on her screen and starts talking to her. And Tatiana's like, "I thought you're done talking to us. You let Mike Evans die, and you called us all bugs." And the sword woman says, that's we're finished with them, but we're not finished with you. He goes, "You are a part of us, and we need you." And the look on Tatiana's face, my thought when I saw it is like, okay, I want to find a girl who looks like Tatiana, who looks at me the way she's looking at her computer screen, because that is just, she is just head over heels, right? And she has found her jam with these crazy Santi aliens and feels like she's part of the group. So yeah, and you're like, ooh, what is she going to do? What mission are they going to give her? And of course, it's to go kind of assist Wenji with her little mission that she's on. So. But yeah, it's a fun little scene because you finally get an answer as to what happened to her, and she's also that the Santi are still communicating with some of their agents on Earth and letting them do stuff. So yeah, it was a really great scene.
Yeah, so we get the check in with Tatiana, and then we have the Wenji. She goes to back to the satellite. It's all broken down and abandoned, and there's nobody there at that outpost anymore. And she asks the guy, the Clarence guy.
I think she said his name was Detective Reynolds. I think something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so she's like, can I have 10 minutes by myself? Can I go have some time by myself? And he's like, I'll come up in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So she goes on ahead and she has her thing, and then out of nowhere, Tatiana shows up, and they have this moment, and it's really sweet because when she's a smart woman, and she says, I feel really bad that you came all this way to do the thing I was just about to do myself. So basically, you came here to kill me, and I was just about to kill myself anyway. So you kind of wasted your trip all the way here. But Tatiana is really sweet and comforting, and is like, no, don't do that, because she was going to throw herself off the cliff. And she's like, no, that will hurt. It may not even work right away.
Right. Yeah.
Pain, you could be broken and in pain and may take a really long time. And she's like, I can give you something better. I can make it,
quick and painless.
Yada, yada. And when G is like, can I just watch the sunset one last, I came up here to watch the sunset one last time. Will you sit with me? And she's like, of course I'll come sit with you. So the like last scene is them like sitting there in the sunset, watching the sunset, and Tatiana like leans over and like rests her head on Wenji's shoulder.
Oh yeah, she's like a cat. She's just very huggy and rubby against and stuff. Yeah, she's very affectionate to Wenji.
And it's got a very like mother-daughter vibe to it too, And so she does that, and then it's just like, and then we don't get the resolution. We just have it end on that. Them watching. Yeah. I mean, you have to assume that Tatiana did her job. She went there on behalf of the Lord to do his work, and so there's no way she's not going to do what the Lord wants. And Wenji is out. So
Wenji,
she's gone. Yeah.
Rosalind Chow is off the call sheet from now on. Unless it's a flashback. And they also, and this is where I said at the beginning, like 2.5 major characters, because they kind of imply that Tatiana kills Reynolds, kills the cop.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
Because, Wenji's like, what happened to, Detective so-and-so, whatever his name was. And her response is, was that his name?
Yeah.
And it's not, is that his name? Yeah. And so, and again, for the life of me, I cannot remember if like that she knocked him out and he goes back and reports to Wade or Clarence or something, or if he's just dead. So he might be, he might not. I honestly, I cannot remember. It's such a minor detail of the show, kind of like, whatever happened, I forgot. So we'll have to see. But it's certainly implied that Tatiana, took care of him. And we've seen she's a cold-blooded killer. So, not something that she would be squeamish about. If like I have to kill that guy, I'm going to kill that guy. So
yeah.
I also thought it was really interesting that when Wenji is walking by herself up to the gate, she looks out onto the vista, the valley where she was before. And if you remember, massive forest when she first got there, huge trees, right, 100 feet high and stuff. And when you look at it now, it's all cut down and empty, and there is literally a nuclear power station in the valley built and running. You see like the cooling towers down there in the distance.
Yeah.
And it just, I take that as it's like giving her a little bit more confirmation that what she did was right. In bringing the Santi here, because we are terrible stewards of our planet and are destroying it all and destroying ourselves in the process. And so, whether they're going to come and crush us like bugs, it's what we deserve for what we were doing, type thing. You know what I mean? And like I took that as a little bit of her going, okay, I feel a little better about my decision. So
yeah. It's funny. It was a very calming scene, even though it was gonna have, it already has like one supposed death. Either Reynolds is knocked out or he's most likely dead. And then Wenji, in theory, should die, in the very next moment, which we don't see yet. Sure. There's a lot of death happening there, but it's also a very peaceful, kind of contented scene, which
very serene,
very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So speaking of contented, we also have the last moments of the episode, really, with Will is, he does his whole thing with, I thought the whole consent thing was really ingenious. Like you had to press a number 5 times, but it had to be a different one. So that you could make sure you don't just go bing, bing, bing.
Oops. Yeah. And also to avoid accidental agreement or whatever they said. Yeah. And it's, I mean, wow, what a tough scene. What a tough moment for Saul, to be with, just imagine being with a friend when they're like, yeah, I'm going to like push these buttons. And then like 2 minutes later, I'm going to be dead,
Yeah.
And I want to do that, I mean, it's gotta be tough. And Saul, like, he tries to talk him out of it, right? He does. He's like, are you sure? And he points out like all of the things of like, what happens if all they do is like like plug you into a computer. And so all they do is ask you questions. You can't feel, you can't touch, you can't see, you're just like in limbo. What is that what you want? And he's like, you really think they're going to do that? And he's like, well, I don't know, worst case scenario. And he's pointing out all these things they could do. And what does Will say? Like, well, maybe they'll like make me their pet or something, right? Because he's trying to find the thing. And Will, every like possibility that Saul comes up with, Will comes back with, and if I don't go, I'm gonna die anyway, right?
Yeah.
It all comes back to, and then we're back to me being dead, which is kind of the trump to any argument anyone's gonna make to him not to do it. He's like, look, if I don't do it, I'm gonna live like another week, maybe, 2.
Yeah.
So why? What's the point? But and so he pushes all the buttons, and I thought it was really touching when Will says something like, I never had a lot of friends, but you guys always made it seem like I had enough. And I thought that was a really poignant line. And of course, Saul is crying, and then Saul says, I'm gonna miss you. And he goes, if they put me back together, I'll miss you too. So that again, it was a real sad, moment, but again, greater purpose, greater good, all that stuff. And so, yeah. And of course, doesn't Wade finally spill the beans about the star to Wenji, right? He says, did you thank him? And she's like, thank him for what? And he's like, for the star. And so she's like, Will brought it. I'm like, yes, Will brought it. How could you not know that? And isn't Wade's response to be like, it's crap. You should like lower your price and sell it to get some of your money back.
Yeah, but you got to sell it quick, or you're not going to make enough money.
Yeah. So she goes right, the overly dramatic, running to catch the person before they leave, that moment that we see in all the movies. Usually it's to the airport, not to the morgue, but here, she does, and of course she gets there just in the nick of time to see them putting his brain in the case into the cryo chamber, right? So she just missed him by that much, right?
Yeah, by about 3 pounds worth.
Oh yeah. 2 kilograms. It's fine. It's totally fine. But yeah, so Will is now, TV dinner, and they're going to, put him onto the probe, and shoot him off into space, presumably in the next episode, but we'll have to see. But what were your thoughts? What did you think about that whole scene?
Just like that was one of the things that I hated, the whole Jin run, and like, I've got to stop him, like that energy. I hated that. I thought it was the worst part of the whole episode. And and I get it, like people react emotionally and all of that, but these guys are scientists, man. You have to get it. I don't know. I just felt like if she hadn't run, maybe if she'd just been like really upset and just got there as fast as she could, and she gets there and she's she's too late, and I get that, but it's like, I think if she had just gone to the room and realized she'd been too late, that would have been enough. But the whole thing with Saul, and she sees his brain put into the tube and all, it was just like, it was too much. It was way too much.
And his body's lying on the table with the sheet over it, right? I mean, it's just like, really? Oh,
yeah, it's like, don't lift that sheet up.
Yeah, do not. It is a mess down there. Yeah. That it certainly was a little melodramatic with her and her reaction, right?
Yeah.
Although I think, doesn't Will tell Saul that he told her not to be there? So he had already said, you do not have to come and watch me do this. Like, I would prefer you not to be, you know what I mean? So she was kind of trying to like abide by his wishes there. But yeah, and then again, once Wade spilled the beans, then literally it's like the end of a rom-com with Jennifer Aniston, right? And racing to the airport to stop them from flying off to England or whatever. I did like, though, when he Will says, well, maybe they'll make me like a pet. And Saul's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I could entertain them. And then Saul goes, well, what what's going to entertain you? What are you going to have that's going to make you happy? And he goes, what's your favorite movie? And Will kind of pauses for a minute. And then he goes, The Shining, which was great.
As soon as he said that, I was like, that's a really wonderful choice, Will. I knew I liked him.
I knew I liked him too, but I mean, also it's a wonderful choice because I mean, The Shining is about isolation anyway, right? I mean, it's it just totally fits in. But I mean, that moment is not lost on either of them because as soon as he says that, they both laugh at just how ironic it is, and it's kind of like their last little like kind of fun moment before he, pushes all the buttons. But I had to write that down because I'm just like, you go, Will.
Oh man, yeah. I was super happy. I didn't want to like harp on it too much, but I was like, oh man, The Shining. Good choice. So anything on your list that we jumped over? I'm looking at mine. I mostly just put that I was like, finally, the show has the zombie connection.
Yes.
Yes, we will reanimate your brain.
And it's all about the brains now. Yeah. I don't think so. I think we hit all the stuff that I had written down. So no, I don't. Again, we're kind of we're set up now for the season finale. So
I know.
But before we jump to break here, what are you hoping to see next week? Because I'm not going to say anything, obviously. So this is all you. So what would you like to see? What do you think we're going to see?
I would love to see. Obviously they get the probe out into space. But I think what I'd like to see is just like a little hint, like maybe it's either a flash forward to, the probe being intercepted, or some sort of like, first person moment from like one of the Santi vessels where they just say, I'm picking up something on our radar. Coming in, that'd be interesting just to sort of flip the perspective. I mean, I can't really say what I'd like sort of want to see with all the characters, but I think that's something I'd like to see is some sort of like some sort of confirmation of the Santi's journey, like either a connection to like I said, like a flash forward or something like that, and then like boom, that's the end of the episode. That'd be really cool. Okay. Something like that. There's lots of various things that could happen with the characters. I think it'd be hilarious if we get like a scene of showing them putting Wade to sleep. He's like, oh, the probe is gone. It's time for me to nap for a year. I'll see you guys next Wimbledon, okay? A couple of those. I think it'd be interesting to see if like Saul gets sort of like reinvigorated with science. Like maybe Will leaving sort of inspires him to sort of like, carpe diem a little bit. That'd be interesting. I think some of that stuff would be really cool.
He did tell Wen-Ji when they were at the cemetery that he was good at physics. He just never loved it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, maybe you're saying like maybe like what Will has done will like ignite Saul's passion.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I think out of all the characters now, Saul is the one that we've done the least with.
Yeah, so it's time for him to sort of step up to the front. So I'm hoping there'll be some Saul stuff next week now that he's sort of, Augie's gone, Jack has been gone, Will is gone, Augie's gone, Jin is sort of in a puddle of like emotional mess. Wen-Ji is gone too, so he can't even like consult with her. So that's that. So Saul is really kind of left solitary, no pun intended.
Yeah.
and it'd be interesting to see him sort of like step up in that moment, in some way, whatever that may be. So
All right, well, we'll have to see. This is going to be real interesting. So yeah, we have one more to go. Oh my God!
Uno más.
It's. I swear, it's a blur.
Yeah, you have no idea.
I mean, it just seems like maybe like 2 weeks ago we started this, and it's not.
And what's funny is we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of this show premiering, because it premiered in March of last year. So
did it?
Yeah, I think it was the 21st. So I think we're only a few more days away. I'll confirm that, but yeah, it did premiere in March. But I'd have to look up the dates and make sure I'm right there. But either way, we're at a year since the show premiered, and I'm excited for more. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, cool.
All right. Awesome. All right. We're going to take a quick break, folks. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and everything that's coming up on the podcast.
So please don't just leave your brain to be shot into space. Stick around, because we'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hey there, this is Greg Nicotero, and you're listening to Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots, they really just don't work.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback, chat a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast. So as far as feedback goes, first is where it should be. Number one feedback.
That's right. Number one.
So we got some feedback via the Facebooks from our pal Erica Price. Erica, thank you so much, as always, for sending in your thoughts. Erica wrote in and says, not me thinking the chimp was going to eat their faces off.
Yep, I was right there with you.
Right. I peeked and I saw that first line of her feedback when I was talking. So when I was like, I think other people felt the same way about the chimp, I knew that Erica wrote that line. I'm like, yeah. So hopefully other people, if you're listening, did you feel the same way that the chimp was going to tear their faces off? Because it feels like it was common. Continuing, she says, if vomiting is a typical side effect, why give him a banana? Yeah, I get it. Wade's longevity plan is bonkers. Agreed. Will's sister is a hag, and I see why he cut them out of his life. We really don't want Clarence's kid partnering with Dennis, right?
Yeah.
Probably not. I wonder what Augie's invention was intended for originally. What a great question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if that's something that would be revealed down the way when we see it being used in other applications, maybe. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
But excellent question. She continues and says, I'm so glad Will finally told Jin how he feels. We as the audience really needed that closure. I'm sorry, but that joke was terrible that when she told. If I was in Will's position, I would 100% want my noggin shot into space. Take that, hateful aliens. I'm curious, what would Diana and Steve do if they were in Will's position? Brain torpedo or nah?
What do you think there, Dee?
I think you'd have to actually put yourself into Will's actual position, because I can't imagine doing it, but also he was dealing with mortality as well. So that's a lot to sort of digest. I don't know, maybe if I felt like, you know, if I was dying, and also if I was a lot, I hate to say it, but if I was younger, I mean, I'm a lot older than Will probably is in this. So
You are.
Such a gentleman. So I don't know, probably, you know, it depends. I'm not sure I would be approached, because you'd need someone who, you know, knows science to a really large degree, and that ain't me. But if given that opportunity, I think I might say yes. But again, like I said, you'd have to be in that you know, terminal illness sort of state of mind, as it were. How about you?
Oh,
Torpedo or no?
Torpedo in a second, without a hesitation.
Wow, look at you.
Absolutely. Well, I think all of us have a profound fear of dying, and so, you know, this is a way to not do that. Yep, sign me up.
There you go, people. Erica continues on and says, last week's episode had Diana wanting Will's character to have a purpose. Well,
yes,
it's a pretty big one. I sure did. And they came through.
It was so hard not to say anything last week. I was like, just wait.
Just wait just a little bit longer.
Yep.
She continues hilariously and says, lastly, I'm sorry Joe feels slighted. Stay away from the lampposts. All my love, you're a number one feedback person. And she puts a bunch of laughing while crying emojis. Yep. Don't worry, we'll keep them down from the lampposts for you.
That's right. Well, thanks. At the very least, we'll go and remove the ladder so it's not there.
Yes. Yeah. Although, to be fair, it doesn't seem like they needed ladders in the show either, remember? Very, very clean suicide location.
Yes.
Thank you for the feedback, as always, Erica. Always makes us chuckle. And I loved the couple of questions. The things about what was Augie's invention supposed to be for. I don't have an answer for that, but I wonder if we'll get one. And asking us if we would be a brain torpedo. And
and I think that's a question we should all ask at least one person tomorrow, randomly.
If you had the opportunity to be a brain torpedo, would you take it? And you can't give them any context either.
No, and you have to say, would you answer brain torpedo or nah?
Or nah, yeah.
That's what it has to be.
It's very, very important. It's context. No context, just ask the question. Excellent. Thanks as always for writing in, Erica. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great stuff. All right, so moving on, we because of the pressure campaign that Diana is currently exerting on one of our friends, Joe Griffin also sent us feedback.
I'm on the verge of doing the whole thing where you like take the nails out of the fingers or put the little something underneath the nails.
Oh,
I don't know, something to do with the nails. I don't know.
That's right. You know,
finger trauma. We know that will bother you.
That'll bother me. Yes, Joe might not mind, but I understand the things under the fingernails that costs extra at some of those places. So that's very nice. So okay. All right, so Joe sent this in, and this was via the email, and he it's kind of one of those sort of a stream of consciousness, just lots of random thoughts kind of an email. So He starts out by going, Cola, the puking chimpsicle, hope for the future?
Question mark?
Question mark? Yeah. And kind of tying in with Erica's thing. It's like, if it's a very common side effect that he gets sick, why would you give him a banana? That's just mean, right?
It is, yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So he goes on and goes, I share Augie's cynicism that the people getting effed over always get effed over. If you're steerage, you're at the bottom of the Atlantic with the Titanic. And yes, she does kind of say that when she's talking to Dennis, that, he's talking about making a lot of money and selling this very high end. And she's going, I wanted to do this to help people. And it's like the dream has been perverted right at that moment. I think that all of us kind of have that a little bit of Augie's cynicism there of like, this is what we do, right? We take something that's designed to help people and figure out a way to make money off of it and only help a few, or whatever.
Yeah.
He goes on and says, Will's family is a piece of work. But yeah, mom's inheritance, that you can have. It's 40 quid. Joke on it. Again, he very conveniently does not tell them that he, has several million pounds left over from Jack's inheritance, right? So yeah, it's you can have whatever mom left me, that $10 here, take it, whatever. He goes, that next thing he says is always fun to see a book about the Fermi paradox in a show where there are actual aliens. And that is referenced when Wenji, before she goes to the airport, there's a scene where she's like going through Vera's room, it looks like. And she's packing away stuff and looking at stuff. And Vera has a book called The Fermi Paradox. And it's basically about Enrico Fermi very famously asked, if there's intelligent life in the universe, where are they? Why aren't they here? Why haven't they visited us? And it's sort of the idea of, if there are advanced species out there, why are we not seeing any evidence of them? And again, as Joe points out, that's very ironic considering this whole story is about advanced aliens that have made their presence known. So yeah. He goes on to say, Augie, the human pendulum swings away from Wade World again. And by the way, we now have to refer to the mansion as Wade World without a doubt.
I mean, absolutely. That's where they are partying on and being
party on, Jin, party on, Wade. It's got to happen. He goes, her steadfast nature is what I admire most, almost as much as her ability to hold her liquor. And it's true, because she was, I'm working for Wade. I'm not working for Wade. Now I'm working for Wade again. Now I'm not working for Wade. So yeah, she is definitely swinging as one side to the other, depending on the episode. So he goes on and goes, I get Will reflecting on things, sure, but Saul in the graveyard with his I never liked physics bit, I get that it's the end of the world and people are dying and all that, but watching people look back wistfully on their careers at the ripe old age of 30 is really funny from my perspective. And I think that you can appreciate that only if you're, like old lady Driscoll and are up there in the years. So he goes on to go, Wade is working on levels, man. Levels.
Yes.
Oh God, he is. Yeah. Like we said, people don't volunteer to work for them. He volunteers them to work for him. Yeah. He goes, I think it's a missed opportunity for Apple that they don't feature the assisted suicide app on their iPad ads.
Yeah, they should.
It was pretty cool, right? It said right on there, if you consent, push, and then it had a number. It was like 1 through 6 or something, right? And then it said if you do not consent, hit another number, and like you said, every time you hit a number, it would change to a different number, so you couldn't just go 55555 or whatever. So yeah, that was I'm surprised Apple doesn't do that. And then finally he goes, and Will finally finds a way to get ahead in physics. Yeah. And then he put in parentheses, I'll be here all week, tip your waitstaff. So yeah, some funny, but it's also some interesting points as well. So thank you so much, Joe, for writing in. And the good news is that the pressure campaign only will go one more week. So
you missed his last line.
Oh, wait, you're right. I'm sorry. It's on the next page. I'm so sorry. And he finishes off and he goes, as Final Sunsets go, that one was pretty crappy.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of obscured in the clouds. It wasn't like it was a clear day or anything. But yeah, that's true. They could have made it like more like majestic, right? And make it, like the greatest sunset ever. But they didn't.
No. All right. Oh, so that's everything for episode 7. Thanks for your feedback, Joe. Thanks as always. The pressure campaign is working marvelously.
One more week. More photos coming your way, Joe.
So speaking of next week, it is the season finale. Can't believe we're there already. Title of the episode is Wall Facer. I'm dying to know what that means. A high-level operation upends Saul's life. Saul, censored in the episode. With emotions and expectations high, the probe launches into space as humanity enters a daunting new era.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
D, speak or ask, and you shall receive.
Absolutely.
You were just talking about Saul, and there he is, right there in the synopsis.
I know. I'm amazing is really what the moral of the entire podcast should be about.
That's why I joined this crazy thing.
Right. Exactly. Why wouldn't you?
I know.
All right, so that's next week's episode. Please come back and give us your feedback for that once you see the posts on the socials. Other stuff going on with us these days. This past week, we both attended. There's a local podcaster, Nick DiGilio. He does a movies podcast. Lots of fun. He's very highly involved with the Flashback Weekend convention as well. He's been involved since day one, and he's such a character. And he does this movie series, which is basically, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it. It's basically just movies that he thinks kick ass.
Movies
and that
he loves, yes.
And he just wants to share them with others and watch them in like a shared space. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty eclectic collection. And this past week, he was showcasing Escape from New York. And that's a classic, and it's a great movie. And Steve and I went to go see it, and it was so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah, we put a couple pics up on the socials, and
yeah,
you can see us with our eye patches. Pretty cool.
As we should. We got our Snake Plissken on.
You know it, yeah, and yeah, you know it's at the Lake Theater, which is in Oak Park, which is a suburb of Chicago, and the theater is gorgeous.
It really is.
Oh my God, it's it's an old movie theater. I think we talked about it last week. It's an old theater, but they totally redid the inside, so it has the stadium seating, and every seat is like a recliner, and it has a butt warmer, and yeah, I mean it is an incredible place to see a movie, and yeah, Nick's got a whole bunch of really cool stuff coming up that we're already kind of preparing for, even though it's months away.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show his varied taste. I mean, you go month to month, it's Escape from New York, and next month it's Ishtar.
Yeah.
And he's also got a screening planned for Dr. Strangelove, and on through the summer. But the next one that's showcasing that we are so excited for, we already have our tickets. And it's in May, and he's doing a showing of Mad Max Fury Road. And I am so excited. I'm so excited. I didn't even tell you this part. I bought myself a special t-shirt that I'm going to be wearing for that.
Nice.
As soon as we came back, I was like, everybody had a fun Escape from New York t-shirt, and I felt kind of left out. So I was like, I need to get a fun t-shirt, and I did. Cool. So I'll have that for May. So that's fun. But yeah, Nick is great because he chats about the movie a little bit before we started. And then when the movie's over, he actually, like specifically for like the Escape from New York, when the movie was over, he showed a few minutes from a panel interview that he'd done. He hosted the panel with Adrienne Barbeau at Flashback, and they talked a little bit about John Carpenter. And it was a great conversation. It was funny, couple of little stories there. And then when that was finished, then he does a little bit of trivia, gives away some prizes, and it's a lot of fun, very audience interactive, and he's a great guy. He's a funny little asshole is basically what he would probably want to say about himself. So he's great.
His preferred term is jagoff.
Yes, I'm sorry. I used the improper terminology.
Yeah. Even though he acknowledges that jagoff, it comes from Pittsburgh, apparently, is where that word started. But he has adopted it, and so he refers to like when you listen to his podcast at the beginning, he has a friend of his made a little musical song, and literally one of the lines is "Don't be a jagoff" in the song. So yeah. You're right. He is a total character, and he has an amazing amazing memory when it comes to movies. You mentioned a movie, he can give you the director and the year it came out and all that. And he's been reviewing movies in Chicago. This is his 40th year, so he actually
pretty awesome.
He's hawking a book he's going to release this summer, and it's like a movie he reviewed from every year he's reviewed movies. He's starting in 1985 and going all the way to this year. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. So he is, and he's a total nerd when it comes to the apocalypse and the horror stuff, and so he's definitely we are one of his tribe. There's no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. It felt like a very safe space when we were there for Escape from New York. So so if you live in the Chicago area and you'd never heard about it, just look up Nick's Picks, or just look up Classic Cinema Lake Theater, and that's the one that's in Oak Park, and they've got a whole page dedicated. They do some other programs there which you can look into, which was they look like fun, but specifically the Nick stuff, they've got their own little page talking about the schedule coming up. And it's on a Wednesday night, and I know that that's a school night, but it's worth it. It's a lot of fun. So if you're in the Chicago area and you're interested in seeing any of those movies, you should go. It was a lot of fun, and it's not expensive either. Like, it's not an expensive movie ticket. Yeah.
$9 a ticket, and the concessions are not expensive either compared to other theaters, and you do get free refills on popcorn and soda. So,
which is very important for Steve.
It's just very important for everybody, man. You can go if you don't have to buy the drink that's like 9 times the size of your bladder. You can get a smaller one, and then you can run out and refill it if you want more. So I think that's pretty cool. So very fun experience.
Yeah, and in this economy, it's a good deal. Let's put it that way, and a lot of fun. And he makes it fun because he does a little before and a little after, so it makes it more like an event. And it was great. Good night all around.
Well, and we should point out that I actually won.
Oh, you won!
A trivia thing.
That's right. I forgot all about it. What was the trivia? And the thing that's great too is you were saying the thing about how he's an encyclopedia. He was just coming up with like really deep dive trivia questions off the top of his head. Which was great.
It was not written down. He's just sort of like, let me think. The question that he asked that I got right was. He said Adrienne Barbeau, who of course plays Maggie in Escape from New York. Right. He said she appeared in what classic George Romero film? And I shot my hand up, and of course I was wearing the eye patch at the time, and so he went, "Eye patch, what is it?" And the answer, and I give people a second to think about it, but the correct answer is Creepshow. From 1982. She's in the episode with the crate where she plays Billy, this shrewish wife that to Fritz Weaver that he is like imagining killing her the whole episode, and then he finds this crate in the basement of his university, and there's a monster that's still alive inside of it, and once he learns that, he figures out a way to get rid of his wife, and she is amazing in that episode. She must have had a ball filming it because she just says the most inappropriate stuff at all times, and you know what I mean? Like, gets to do all the fun stuff that you can't do in real life. She gets to do. So
how dare she have fun?
Yeah. But anyway, so I won an art print, a picture of Snake Plissken that a friend of Nick's had donated a couple of them to give away, and it's
such
real cool.
It's a great print too. It's really well done. Very colorful too. I thought it was great.
Yeah. So yeah,
you won something. I forgot.
it was a super great, super fun night, and
Basically, I'm gonna have to bone up on all of my Fury Road, Furiosa / Mad Max Apocalypse trivia for the next one, so that I'm prepared and I'm ready.
Well, and also bone up on Tom Hardy movies and on Charlize Theron movies and. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to be ready. Okay. So speaking of getting ready, less than 2 weeks to go until Days of the Dead convention here in Chicago. Again, that that convention takes place in Rosemont, right outside of Chicago. Very, very easy to get to. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from the closest train station. Lots of really great parking options. It's right in the Crown Plaza, which is right across the street from the big Rosemont Convention Center. And it's a lot of fun. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say that it's called the Don, the Donald E. Stevens.
Oh, the Don. Center. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. We are going this year, of course. I think, Steve, you're going to go. You're going at least Friday, Saturday, possibly Sunday. And I will be there Saturday.
Yeah. They haven't released yet the official panel schedule yet, so I want to see what's going on Sunday. But definitely want to see Ty West. Who's the director of the X Pearl Maxine trilogy for A24, and so that he'd be great. And then there's a big Revenge of the Nerds reunion there. There's just a whole bunch of folks. A couple of Galaxy Quest people are going to be there if you like Galaxy Quest. Mimi Rogers is going to be there. Remember Mimi Rogers? And
I do.
And then two of the guys from Predator, not named Arnold, are going to be there. Then there's it's kind of an eclectic group of horror and suspense guests this year for this one. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun, and of course we will be there. You and I will be there together on Saturday, definitely. So if you're planning to go to the show, and there are plenty of tickets available, and if you are, you should buy them in advance because they are cheaper if you get them ahead of time rather than at the door. But we will be there walking around, and you'll be totally able to spot us because, as we always say, we'll be the two people there that are wearing the horror TV shirts.
Yeah, the black horror shirts. That's it.
Yeah.
We'll be. You can't miss us.
We will stand right out. There's no doubt. And
Steve's the guy that's bald. So you should easily be able to find him too.
Oh yeah, unless I'm wearing a hat, which maybe.
And he'll be carrying all of his posters with him. So that'll be. That's not obvious. No.
I don't know. I don't know what. Anyway, but if we're walking around and you see us, just you come up and smack Diane in the face and say, "Hey, I want a picture," and we will totally take a picture.
Oh my God, so much violence! Why? Don't smack me in the face, please. Besides, I have glasses; it'll hurt.
We'd have you take your glasses off.
Yeah, that's not happening. Then I'll be blind, and we don't want that either. So we're looking forward to that. And if you're in the area and you have the ability, it's a lot of fun. It's a great little con. They always have good guests, and it's always I hate to say really easy, but it's usually decently easy to try and get your stuff signed, no matter how popular the person is. The wait's usually, at the most, you might wait a little bit. It's not like going to the bigger cons where you've got a line of 300 people and, you don't get the signature until 3 hours later and that kind of thing. It's not like that. So.
Yeah, these ones, if Robert Englund's there, you're going to wait, somebody like that. But the good news...
Last year was Clive Barker was the big thing, and that was a long wait for people,
Right. But... The big thing that for me personally that I love is that at all these shows now, the big draw usually is the Terrifier movies, bringing in a whole, they get 6, 7, 8 people. They get Damien Leone, the creator and director, and they get the guy who plays Art the Clown and all this stuff. And it's great because I do not like those movies at all. So I have no desire to stand in line to get those people out. They're very nice people. I'm not saying they're not, but I don't want them. And everybody else does, which means all the other people tend to have less. So I really like that. So I hope that continues.
It has positively affected your ongoing experience.
That is the one thing I appreciate about the Terrifier movies.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to be us in less than 2 weeks, folks. Hopefully we'll see you there. You should check it out. And I think that's going to wrap it up for us. I don't think we have anything else to discuss this week. You got anything else you want to add?
No, the only thing I would throw out is that next week, if you're going to leave any feedback, it can also be about the whole series in general, not just episode 8. So, if you just overall thoughts, favorite moment or whatever, if you want to throw that in, that would be absolutely accepted and wanted. So please consider that as well.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to wrap up our coverage of episode 7 of Three Body Problem. We look forward to chatting with you all next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because the body shots, they just don't work. Just ask Will.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
Pretty much hate people. Yeah, I do. I mean, they're stupid. They don't do what I want them to do. I mean, it's just, yeah, they get in the way. They don't obey the rules. Yeah, so I'm like, no, if I can avoid people at all costs, I'm quite happy.